Imagine this, a dusty museum basement, long after closing hours. A lone researcher stands in the glow of a flickering light bulb, staring at a skull carved entirely from crystal. It's flawless, too flawless, and as they lean closer, the air seems to thicken. The room is silent, but their pulse pounds in their ears. They swear the skull's empty eye sockets are following them. The world is full of artifacts, relics of civilizations long gone. Most are studied, catalogued, explained, but the crystal skulls are different. They terrify those who dare to look too closely. They have been called portals to other realms, transmitters of ancient knowledge, and even warnings left by forgotten gods. Some believe they are messages from humanity's creators, or our destroyers. Throughout history, these skulls have appeared in the hands of explorers, archaeologists, and collectors, often surrounded by tragedy and mystery. Some researchers have gone missing, others have died under strange circumstances, and a few claim the skulls whisper to them in their dreams. Science has tried to solve the puzzle. Tools have been brought out, microscopes have scanned every groove. Yet, despite the tests, the skulls still defy explanation. Who carved them? Why do so many show machining marks that shouldn't exist before the industrial age? This is not just archaeology. This is a journey into the unknown, where history, myth, and fear collide. By the end of this investigation, you'll have to decide for yourself, are these crystal skulls nothing more than clever hoaxes, or are they artifacts holding a truth so dangerous that even science trembles before it? Long before European explorers set foot in the Americas, whispers of strange, shining skulls had already woven themselves into the oral traditions of Mesoamerican civilizations. The Aztec, the Maya, and even tribes far to the north told stories of crystal heads with supernatural power, objects said to speak to shamans, heal the sick, or summon visions of the future. In Mayan legend, there are tales of 13 sacred skulls scattered across the earth. Together, they are said to hold the key to humanity's destiny. Some versions claim that when the 13 are reunited, they will reveal knowledge to save the world from destruction. Others warn that if they are brought together before humanity is ready, they could trigger our downfall. Aztec mythology paints an equally eerie picture. Some codices describe crystal skulls as emissaries of the gods of death, symbols of the underworld, used in rites to connect priests with divine forces. The skull, in their worldview, was not merely a symbol of death but of transformation, a threshold between worlds. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the early 1500s, they were horrified and fascinated by these artifacts. Chroniclers wrote about temples adorned with skull racks, tzompantli, and rituals where death and life intertwined. Imagine their shock upon seeing not just bone skulls, but ones carved from crystal, shimmering like ice under the tropical sun. To European eyes, these were witchcraft, proof of devilry, objects to be looted or destroyed. As centuries passed, the crystal skulls vanished into private collections, churches, and secret vaults. Rumors grew wilder. Some said the skulls were Atlantean technology, others that they were gifts from star visitors who shaped human evolution. By the 19th century, European explorers and antiquarians became obsessed. Adventurers trekked through jungles and deserts searching for the legendary 13. But for every tale of discovery, there was a tale of misfortune. Expeditions met with accidents, sickness, even violent ends. Indigenous guides often warned the explorers not to touch the skulls, claiming they were sacred, even dangerous. The warnings were rarely heeded, and sometimes, those who ignored them never returned. The skulls became more than just relics. They became symbols of forbidden knowledge, objects that blurred the line between history and mythology. Are they ceremonial tools crafted by brilliant artisans, or are they truly something beyond human understanding? This is where the legend grows darker. Some indigenous elders claimed the skulls were never meant for everyone, that they were entrusted to guardians who would protect them until humanity was spiritually ready. If so, every modern attempt to study or display them might not just be curiosity, it might be desecration. The stage is set, ancient civilizations revere them, colonizers fear them, and collectors obsess over them. But the story of the crystal skulls doesn't end in dusty temples or myths. It leads us to jungles, laboratories, and private vaults across the globe. The next step in our journey will take us to the actual discovery trail, where these skulls first emerged into modern history, and the string of eerie coincidences that followed their appearance. The modern story of the crystal skulls begins in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, during the golden age of exploration and archaeology. Europe was captivated by tales of lost civilizations. Adventurers, archaeologists, and collectors ventured into the jungles of Central and South America, bringing back artifacts that would fill the great museums of London and Paris. One of the earliest skulls to appear was acquired by the Parisian antiquities dealer Eugene Boban in the 1860s. Boban sold crystal skulls to collectors and institutions, including the Musée du Quai Branly in France and the British Museum. To the public, they were marvels of Mesoamerican art. To scientists of the era, they were curiosities, too perfect to be believed, yet too fascinating to dismiss. Then came perhaps the most famous, and controversial, skull of all, the Mitchell-Hedges skull. In the 1920s, English adventurer F. Mitchell-Hedges claimed that his adopted daughter, Anna, discovered the skull while clearing a ruined temple in Lebanton, Belize. According to the story, the moment sunlight struck the crystal, workers stopped and stared, realizing they had uncovered something extraordinary. But here's where the mystery thickens. Researchers later discovered inconsistencies in Mitchell-Hedges' story. Auction records suggested he may have purchased the skull years later in London, not discovered it in the field. Was he lying to create a legend around the artifact, or was there a deeper reason to obscure its true origins? Other skulls surfaced in similar fashion, appearing suddenly in private collections, donated anonymously to museums, or sold quietly at auctions. Almost none of them were excavated under proper archaeological conditions, leaving their origins shrouded in doubt. And yet, no two skulls are exactly alike. Some are life-size, others smaller, and a few are crafted with movable jaws, an incredible feat considering they are carved from solid quartz. Many seem to defy the limitations of pre-Columbian stone tools, displaying a level of polish and symmetry that rivals modern machining. Wherever these skulls turned up, strange stories followed. A curator in one museum reportedly refused to be alone in the room with a skull after hearing whispers. An archaeologist fell mysteriously ill after examining one for several weeks. One private collector locked his crystal skull away after claiming it caused mirrors in his home to crack. This trail of discoveries, half documented, half legend, has left researchers with more questions than answers. Are we looking at a series of brilliant 19th-century forgeries that fooled even the best experts of their time? Or are we uncovering relics from a forgotten age whose makers had access to tools and knowledge that seem impossibly advanced? The hunt for truth doesn't stop here. If these artifacts are authentic, they should yield to scientific analysis. And so, as the 20th century progressed, researchers turned to the latest technology, microscopes, X-rays, and spectroscopy, to peel back the veil. What they found would only deepen the mystery. As the 20th century wore on, curiosity about the crystal skulls grew too strong to ignore. Museums and laboratories began to apply the latest scientific techniques to separate myth from reality. Surely, they thought, modern science would solve the riddle once and for all. The British Museum was one of the first to take a closer look. Their crystal skull, long a centerpiece of their Mesoamerican collection, underwent microscopic analysis. Under high magnification, researchers discovered parallel striations, tiny tool marks, inconsistent with ancient stone tools. They concluded that the skull must have been carved using rotary wheels and modern abrasives, likely sometime in the 19th century. This finding sparked a wave of re-examinations. The Smithsonian Institution, which also held a crystal skull, conducted a study and came to a similar conclusion. Their skulls showed evidence of being worked with jewelers' tools, not primitive chisels. The verdict seemed clear: the crystal skulls were sophisticated fakes, produced to satisfy the Victorian appetite for exotic curiosities. But just when it seemed the case was closed, the Mitchell-Hedges skull complicated the picture. When it was examined under electron microscopes, researchers found no obvious tool marks at all. The surface was so perfectly polished that it baffled experts. How could such precision have been achieved without modern equipment, and without shattering the quartz in the process? Some engineers noted that quartz is one of the hardest minerals on Earth, and carving it with such perfection would be nearly impossible using copper or stone tools. Even with today's technology, reproducing a flawless skull of that size would take months of meticulous work. And yet, here it was, a skull seemingly made with impossible skill, its origins undocumented. The scientific community split. Some doubled down on the forgery theory, arguing that the Mitchell-Hedges skull must also have been created with advanced 19th-century lapidary techniques. Others were less sure, pointing out that no records exist of such a masterwork being commissioned or sold, and that its symmetry was eerily beyond what most Victorian craftsmen could achieve. The result? Instead of solving the mystery, science deepened it. Each test answered one question but raised two more. If these are hoaxes, why are some of them technologically inexplicable even today? And if they are authentic, what kind of knowledge did their creators possess, and why did they choose the human skull as their medium? This scientific tug-of-war only intensified public fascination. The skulls moved from museum cases into the realm of legend, becoming objects of fear and obsession. And as researchers pressed on, a more disturbing pattern began to emerge, one involving strange phenomena, accidents, and tragedies that seemed to follow anyone who spent too much time with the crystal skulls. If the crystal skulls were simply clever forgeries, you might expect the story to end with museum reports and academic papers. But what truly keeps this mystery alive are the experiences, some would say curses, that seem to follow the skulls wherever they go. Take the case of a curator at a major museum who worked closely with one of the skulls for several months. She began reporting an unshakable feeling of being watched whenever she entered the exhibit room. At night, she dreamt of jungles and voices speaking in an unknown language. Eventually, she requested a transfer, claiming the skull was draining her energy. She isn't alone. Collectors have told stories of mirrors shattering, electronics malfunctioning, and even pets reacting strangely when a skull was brought into their homes. One researcher reported that, while alone with a skull, she heard a distinct ringing sound that grew louder until she fainted. When she woke, hours had passed. Even more disturbing are the cases where tragedy struck. An archaeologist involved in studying the Mitchell-Hedges skull died suddenly of a heart attack at a young age. Another researcher suffered a severe accident shortly after conducting a public lecture on the artifacts. Skeptics dismiss these as coincidences, but those who work with the skulls whisper about an unseen force that doesn't like to be disturbed. Psychologists have tried to explain these phenomena as suggestion, the result of working with an object already surrounded by myth. The mind, they argue, is capable of conjuring fear and even hallucinations under the right circumstances. And yet, there are moments when physical evidence is hard to ignore, temperature drops measured around the skulls, faint light seen in darkened rooms, cameras glitching at the exact moment of filming. Some indigenous shamans claim these occurrences are warnings, not accidents. The skulls, they say, are alive in a way we cannot understand. They are guardians, and anyone who approaches them with greed or disrespect will suffer the consequences. Whether one believes these stories or not, they add a powerful psychological weight to the skull's reputation. Scientists may try to remain objective, but even seasoned researchers admit that working with the skulls for too long can be unsettling, as if the artifacts are staring back, measuring those who dare to study them. This is the moment where the line between science and the supernatural blurs. Are these events truly paranormal, or are they simply the human mind reacting to an object steeped in mystery? And if the skulls really do hold a power beyond our comprehension, a power that can influence people, events, even fate, what might happen if all of them were brought together? If the strange phenomena surrounding the crystal skulls weren't enough, some researchers and mystics believe the skulls aren't just artifacts, they are containers of knowledge, like cosmic hard drives. This is where the story moves from archaeology into the realm of prophecy, and where the mystery becomes truly unsettling. One of the most enduring legends claims there are 13 crystal skulls scattered across the planet. When brought together, they will speak, unlocking secrets about humanity's origins and future. According to some indigenous traditions, these skulls contain a record of Earth's history, from the birth of civilizations to cataclysms that wiped them out. New Age writers have taken this further, suggesting the skulls are repositories of advanced technology, holding holographic data in their crystalline structure. In this view, quartz isn't just a pretty mineral, it's a material capable of storing and transmitting information, the same way quartz crystals are used in modern electronics. Could the ancients have known this thousands of years ago? Some even link the skulls to Atlantis, claiming they are remnants of a lost global civilization destroyed by its own hubris. The skulls, then, would serve as a warning, a message left for future generations to avoid the same fate. Others take the idea in an extraterrestrial direction, suggesting the skulls were gifts from star visitors who seeded humanity and left behind these devices as a test. Theories grow even stranger when we consider timing. Some researchers connected the skulls to the Mayan long count calendar, predicting that the reuniting of the 13 skulls would coincide with a global shift, what some saw as a catastrophic end of the world, others as a spiritual awakening. The infamous 2012 doomsday predictions drew heavily on this idea. Governments and secret organizations are not absent from the story, either. Conspiracy theorists claim that intelligence agencies have secretly collected crystal skulls for study, believing they might be keys to mind control, energy manipulation, or advanced weaponry. If that's true, then the skulls are not just historical curiosities, they're potentially dangerous artifacts of power. But whether these theories are truth or fantasy, they share one thing: they treat the skulls as more than mere works of art. They are portrayed as repositories of something so valuable, or so dangerous, that humanity may not be ready to access it. This raises a haunting question: what if the strange accidents, whispers, and tragedies surrounding the skulls are not curses, but safeguards, a kind of cosmic security system designed to keep their secrets hidden until the right moment in history? Whatever the answer, these theories have only deepened humanity's obsession with the skulls. And that obsession hasn't stayed confined to scholars and mystics, it has spilled over into books, television, and blockbuster movies, turning the crystal skulls into one of the most famous mysteries of all time. By the late 20th century, the crystal skulls had escaped the confines of museums and academic debates, they had become cultural icons. Authors, filmmakers, and television producers seized on their eerie allure, transforming them into symbols of hidden power and cosmic mystery. In the 1980s and 1990s, New Age writers popularized the idea that the skulls could heal, emit energy fields, or enhance psychic abilities. Workshops and retreats sprang up where participants could meditate with replica skulls, claiming visions or spiritual awakenings. Whether or not the effects were real, the skulls became a fixture in the growing movement of alternative spirituality. Then came Hollywood. From television documentaries to big-budget adventure films, the crystal skulls became the ultimate MacGuffin, the mysterious object everyone wants but no one fully understands. The most famous example may be Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which, despite its fictionalized story, introduced millions to the concept. For many viewers, it was the first time they heard of crystal skulls at all, cementing them as part of the pop culture landscape. Even video games and comic books joined in, using crystal skulls as keys to secret worlds, cursed treasures, or alien technologies. Each adaptation added to their mystique, blurring the line between history and fantasy. This exposure created a feedback loop. The more the skulls appeared in media, the more collectors and seekers became interested in finding real ones. Replica markets flourished, and even small crystal carvings sold as mystical skulls became popular worldwide. But while pop culture helped keep the legend alive, it also deepened the divide between believers and skeptics. To scientists, the skulls became little more than tourist attractions, their true study overshadowed by sensationalism. To believers, the skepticism only made them seem more forbidden, and therefore, more alluring. In this way, the crystal skulls have become more than artifacts. They are cultural mirrors, reflecting our fears, our fascination with death, and our hunger for something greater than ourselves. And yet, beyond the screens and souvenir shops, serious researchers are still asking hard questions. If these objects are indeed fakes, why do they inspire such devotion, and if they are real, why can't we agree on their origins? For every believer captivated by the crystal skulls, there is a skeptic ready to bring the conversation back down to earth. To archaeologists and historians, the crystal skull phenomenon is less a mystery and more a case study in how myths are born. The strongest argument against the skull's authenticity comes from tool mark analysis. Under scanning electron microscopes, most of the known skulls display rotary wheel marks, the telltale sign of modern lapidary techniques. This kind of precision, critics argue, simply wasn't possible with pre-Columbian tools made of stone or copper. Furthermore, the lack of proper excavation records raises red flags. Not one of the famous skulls was found under controlled archaeological conditions. They simply appeared in collections during the late 19th century, coincidentally, at the height of Europe's fascination with Mesoamerican artifacts. This was also the era of elaborate forgeries created to satisfy museums and private collectors willing to pay fortunes for ancient wonders. Skeptics also point out that there is no clear mention of crystal skulls in Aztec or Maya codices. While skull imagery was indeed common in these cultures, the idea that they carved life-sized skulls from quartz may be a modern myth retrofitted onto genuine traditions. Even the paranormal claims are met with criticism. Psychologists suggest that the strange experiences reported by researchers are the result of expectation and suggestion, a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. When you work with an object said to be cursed or magical, your mind becomes hyper-alert, interpreting normal noises, coincidences, and dreams as meaningful. In this view, the crystal skulls are not relics of a forgotten civilization or alien technology. They are beautiful, but ultimately human-made works of art, likely crafted in European workshops during the 1800s. But here's the twist, even skeptics admit that some skulls, particularly the Mitchell-Hedges specimen, remain difficult to explain. And that small gap of uncertainty is enough to keep the mystery alive. Despite decades of analysis, debate, and even debunking, the crystal skulls refuse to be fully explained. Each attempt to close the case seems to leave behind new cracks, places where mystery seeps back in. Take the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Even among skeptics, it remains a strange outlier. Unlike most other skulls, it shows no clear signs of modern tool work under microscopic examination. Its symmetry is so perfect that experts have called it anatomically accurate to a degree that borders on impossible. Its detachable jaw, carved from the same single piece of quartz, is a feat few modern artisans could replicate without shattering the material. Then there's the sheer volume of indigenous oral tradition. While written codices may not explicitly describe crystal skulls, many shamanic lineages still speak of sacred heads made from stone or crystal, used in rites to contact ancestors or gods. Are all these traditions mere coincidence, or echoes of a reality we've lost touch with? Another puzzle lies in the quartz itself. Some of the skulls are made from rock crystal originating hundreds or even thousands of miles from the regions where they were supposedly found. How would pre-Columbian artisans have transported such massive chunks of quartz over such distances, then shaped them with primitive tools, with no evidence of workshops or quarries nearby? And then there are the personal testimonies. Even hardened scientists have admitted feeling uneasy in the presence of certain skulls. While psychology might explain some of these reactions, there are physical anomalies, sudden temperature drops, unexplained sounds, even electromagnetic interference, that are harder to dismiss. Perhaps the most haunting question is why these objects provoke such a powerful response from humanity in the first place. If they are mere forgeries, why do they inspire fear, reverence, even obsession? If they are authentic, then we must ask what purpose they were meant to serve, and whether we were ever meant to rediscover them at all. Some researchers propose that the skulls act like mirrors, reflecting the beliefs of those who encounter them. To the skeptic, they are fakes. To the believer, they are portals. To the fearful, they are cursed. And maybe, just maybe, that is their true function, to challenge us, to make us confront our relationship with death, technology, and the unknown. Whatever the truth, the crystal skulls sit at the intersection of science, myth, and imagination, a puzzle we cannot quite solve, a riddle that refuses to be silenced. And as long as those hollow eyes continue to stare back at us, humanity will keep searching for answers. Picture this, the museum basement once again. The same lonely researcher stands before the crystal skull, its smooth surface glowing faintly under the dim light. Hours have passed, but they can't look away. The skull's hollow eyes seem alive, like two windows into a past we are not meant to see. We have followed the trail from ancient myths to modern laboratories, from jungle ruins to secret vaults, from scientific scrutiny to stories of curses and visions. And yet, the core question remains unsolved. What are these artifacts really? Masterful 19th-century forgeries designed to impress European collectors. Sacred ceremonial objects whose true meaning has been forgotten. Or something stranger, something that challenges what we think we know about human history. Science has given us answers, yes, but also more questions. The tool marks on some skulls suggest fraud, yet others seem too perfect to explain away. Oral traditions insist they hold messages for humanity, but we don't yet know how to read them. Paranormal experiences may be tricks of the mind, or they may be exactly what they appear to be, glimpses into a realm just beyond our understanding. And that may be the most terrifying idea of all, that these skulls are not finished telling their story. That somewhere out there, in private collections, hidden temples, or government archives, more crystal skulls wait to be found. And that one day, someone will bring them together. Will that day reveal humanity's greatest secret? Or will it unleash something we were never meant to face? As the researcher takes a step back, they imagine 13 skulls arranged in a perfect circle, humming with a frequency that shakes the air. For a moment, they wonder if they've been chosen, if the skull is inviting them closer, or warning them to stop. They turn off the light and leave the room, but the image stays with them. The crystal skull sits alone in the darkness, its empty gaze unblinking, as though waiting for the next curious soul to dare ask the question. And that question is now yours: are the crystal skulls a relic of the past, or a message for the future?